Hey guys, welcome to the Centre Bounce. In today's video, we're going over the players who we're tracking in the preseason games and giving our kind of reasons as to why. Is this guy getting a new role? Is this guy getting some new positions, or there's been some mix up in the team? Stay tuned. Joe, we love the preseason games, especially round zero. They kind of just show us, hey, look, this is what the team's for. This is what the players are going, and it helps us in Supercoach, right?
Absolutely. However, having said that, don't look too in depth. Don't look too detailed into the preseason games. It is going to be all about practice. It's not an official hit out. So things aren't necessarily going to be exactly 100% translated from those games into the regular season games.
Mhm.
These are the players that we have identified, having done a lot of the hard work, so you don't have to, of course, a lot of the research into these players in their training sessions, and looking forward to seeing how they've gone from training into some more games, and after which point we'll be a lot more confident in which ones are more likely to start.
Yeah, I mean, like we've done our research in the preseason, and it's look, these are the times that we've got to actually put that into focus and do the mapping for it. So let's get into it, Joe.
Let's go. We start with, I know last video you were sort of complaining a little bit about how you were doing all the North Melbourne players. This time
Done.
around, I'll start us off with Harry Shazel, who nowadays coming into serious consideration after especially the hamstring awareness and then hamstring injury actually suffered by Zach Fisher, who would have been in this list if not for said injury. Harry Shazel obviously showed us last year how much of a gun he is when playing behind the ball. He's a gun everywhere, let's be real. But when it comes to the Supercoach scoring, he showed us his best behind the ball when he gave us an average of 99.5. If he is going to reprise that role over there at halfback due to the Zach Fisher injury, he should be on everyone's watch list.
Yeah, definitely one for me, and someone to kind of. I've talked about North Melbourne's makeup in the back line. Depending on where Shees will go, he could easily push himself into my team, and might end up being a bit underpriced at 556k for what he can output.
Yep. Next player, Jaden Short.
Yeah. Next up on our list is Jaden Short. Now, for the price, I'm not sure how much of a good value pick he is, but it looks like he's going back to that halfback role at Richmond. New coach is trying to just work out where everyone's going to play, and I think the midfield days are over. Short is going to play halfback again. Does that mean that he goes back or builds up to a 105, 110 average where there is some value? It's definitely something to track over the preseason and during the preseason games.
Yep, absolutely. We then move to number 3 on the list, Kitty Coleman, who personally I'm not really big on, personally speaking, but he's certainly really raised the eyes of all of the Supercoach community out there when in his last 3 games of the season, he went at a 97 and then in the finals bumped that up to a 106. So if you
Yep.
look at what he's capable of dishing out, then you will consider that his current price point of under 400k to be a little bit underpriced, which means that there is certainly value over there. Now, he can be now without Daniel Rich, he's now been retired. You can now look at Kitty Coleman to be the primary distributor off halfback for the Brisbane Lions. Does that mean that he is going to go 105 plus to get us a top 6 defender? You got to keep a close eye on that.
Yeah, definitely one to watch there. And it's not so much just is he going to play the role, but also what the makeup of that backline looks like as well. Is there someone like a Fletcher or a few of these other players who are going to steal some points off him?
Yeah. And a Darcy Wilmot, for example, as well.
Yeah, exactly. Connor Buderick is one. I know we spoke about Jaden Short going to halfback. Well, Buderick looks like, from all reports, he might be doing that as well. Hardwick's come in. He knows where he wants to play players. He said, Buderick, I love you in the halfback. You've got the run and dash and the disposal efficiency that we need. So question marks over the player could offer some real value at 301k. Yes, he does have an early buy, but if we can forget about that for a week, I don't say he's going to go keeper status, but could make us a cheeky 150k and have some decent scoring.
Absolutely. Someone who had some very decent scoring and made us some very cheeky cash was Errol Goulden last year. He
Yep.
burst onto the scene in the preseason with a massive 160 plus score that really had us all on attention, and we just could not fade this man based on what we saw. He's now obviously a lot more expensive coming into this season, and there's been a bit of change over there at the Sydney Swans. Obviously, Callum Mills is still going to be missing the first bit of the season, but they've added some cogs. They've added Taylor Adams from the Pies, and they've also added James Jordan from the Demons. So what does the midfield mix look like? We know Errol can score. He's got a beautiful balance between inside and outside. However, one to have a close eye on to see how the changes to the list impact his scoring.
Yeah, definitely there. Next up on our list is Darcy Parish. Now, I know Joe wasn't too keen on me putting him on the list, being like, Parish is a lock, Big J. That's it. But for me and a lot of other super coaches, if we're going to keep him in our team for the whole season, we need to see where there's some clear improvement in his scoring, but then also kind of what the midfield mix looks like alongside Goldstein, who's just coming to the side. He misses all the early buys, which is a big, big green flag for us, but we just need to get that confirmation on, cool, is this guy going to be that scorer that he always kind of tempts us to be?
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I'll let the objective person speak there. We then move to Connor Rozee, the captain of the Port Adelaide Football Club. He is one of the key pillars when it comes to the improvement that we've seen from Port Adelaide, and he holds a lot of responsibility for what happens moving here on out. So he's been a bit managed in the preseason. He hasn't been flying on all cylinders like his partner in crime, Zach Butters, has. He's also very closely linked to another guy that we got on the bench here, who we will talk about in a bit, in terms of what percentage split he's going to have between midfield and forward. He was someone that we flagged in our power ranking video, as well as the potential DPP video of someone who might get forward status. So keep a close eye on him and see what his breakdown is between midfield and forward.
There you go. Next up on our list is a fallen premium in Tuke Miller. Now, there's no question that this guy can score and has been premium status before. But the big question mark for me over the preseason is where he's going to play and what the Gold Coast midfield is going to look like. Because there's a lot of players who are trying to be best 22 in there, are trying to be first rotation. Does Tuke Miller take the spot? Does he go back to massive scoring? Or does he get pushed out a little bit and chucked into a role that maybe doesn't fit like what we saw last year? Big question marks because there's definite value in the pick. Preseason games in round 0 are going to show us that, Joe.
Absolutely. Another one that has value in the pick, and dare I say, could be a steal at the pick, is, of course, Jack Steele. I actually cringed inside here. I knew what I was going to do. I told myself I wasn't going to do it, but the name is just like, come on. How can you not have... But I digress. Jack Steele at 529,500. He has, again, similar to a Tuke Miller, shown in the past that he is capable of reaching those uber premium numbers, and he was so close to winning the Brownlow with that gorgeous smile of his. He's a very handsome man, Jack Steele, Blue Steel, I should call him from now on. But again, I digress. If he has the role, if he's able to reclaim some of that physicality that he had in previous years, last year he came into the season a bit lighter on. This year, from reports, he has bulked up a little bit. He's looking like the Jack Steele of old. He is crunching people in tackles in the preseason, and that is very different to what we saw last year, where he seemed to be disinterested and not engaged. It's the complete opposite this year. Another preseason under Ross the boss, and we could see Jack, the king, return to the surface.
Well, that's it, right? Because we know the scoring's there. It's more just his body as well. Can he just survive? Does he do that? Because there was definite times I was happening in my team last year, and then times I was cursing myself for having Jack Steele, Joe.
It's all right. It's a new season, new year, Big J.
That's it. Next one up on our list is Nick Martin. Now, I know Joe and I have currently got him in our sides and someone who's locked into a position. And from all reports in the preseason, it looks like he's playing that coveted halfback role. We spoke about everyone trying to be Nick Dacos, and Nick Martin's trying to do it as well. So big watches over him in the preseason. How does it go? How does it go in a simulation that's outside of training as well? Because there's definite form in training and then form against actual opponents. So one to watch for me there, but 492K could be a keeper in our backlines once he gets DPP.
Absolutely. Someone who could be a keeper in the midfield, not the forward, not in the back line, is Matt Crouch at 490,800. That is definitely underpriced compared to the output that he is capable of giving and what he has given last year. He averaged around 108 if you take away that sub game in his games last year, which is really impressive. And for someone who is at 490,000 without any early buys, this is a player who you could hold realistically at M8 up until his buy and flip him to an Uber premium. Or if he's able to push out around 110, then he might be someone that you can hold on to for even longer than that. So Matt Crouch, if he's in the side, staying inside the number one midfield rotation. Also want to keep a close eye on whether Adelaide decide to go for a faster, more outside-oriented game plan. If they have less stoppages, they were a top 2 stoppage side in the side last year. If the stoppage numbers go down, then I think that does negatively impact Matt Crouch. So this one is a pick that you watch, not just Matt Crouch, also keep an eye on the Adelaide Crows as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. There's some real value there, and I know some people have, and other commentators on Supercoach have definitely jumped on the pick already. I can be convinced. I just need to be convinced.
Are you convinced about Carl Amon?
Oh, mate, I was at a certain point. Carl Amon was touted for a backline role, going to jump in and be Hawthorn's version of Nick Dacos. But during training, there's been mixed reports. Some people say he's halfback. Some people say he's wing. We need to figure out from the evidence we've got during the preseason games where he's going to line up and if he's worth a spot in our midfield. That's why he's on our list.
Yeah, he could even be both. Him sharing with Weddle, playing off halfback. So there's a lot of change happening at the Hawks. Something else that's going to change, as flagged a little bit early on talking about Connor Rozee, is Ollie Wines. There's going to be a little bit of a change in that Port Adelaide mix now that Ollie Wines appears to be fit and firing at his best. Kinkley himself said this guy is an inside mid, and that is where he is going to play. What sort of effect does that have on the splits that Rozee, Horne-Francis, and Butters are going to have? Willem Drew. There's a lot of players now going through that midfield, and if Ollie Wines is being guaranteed bulk CBAs, then we could see some real value at 463,000.
Mate, if he's playing bulk CBAs and he misses all the early buys, he could be a steal, Joe. He could come out and be like, cool, 550K, done. That's it.
He's got the power.
Yep, he does. You only need him for like 8 games. That's it. Angus Sheldrick is another one that you only really need for about 8 games or so. We know his scoring and how well he scores in that Sydney midfield from last year. Yes, he's had the injuries, but if he comes back fit and firing, similar to a Goulden, there's some real value in the pick. He did score a couple of scores in the 90s, hence his 300K price tag. But there's real question marks over where he plays, where James Jordan plays, or a few of these other guys who've made their way into the team. And then other players who, with that natural progression, have really kind of stood out as well. So one to watch over the preseason, but could be a steal for someone who can't afford maybe a premium in the midfield.
His points per minute was absolutely insane last year. Such a very entertaining pick. We then moved to Sam Flanders, who was not entertaining in the least. He was causing owners to pull their hair out in the early part of the season last year. Stewie Dew gets the sack. He comes back and he plays the role he was always meant to play, the high half forward role, getting a lot of stoppage points, a lot of clearances, a lot of contested possessions, playing higher up the ground. Yes, the CBAs weren't great. He was playing high half forward, which is the role that suits him. And by reports, it seems that is going to continue coming into 2024. The reports are saying that he is training exclusively with the midfield group. He's been spending a lot of time there and is almost, someone has said, 100% mid-time. This is all positive news for someone who's under $500,000. He appears to be the safest of our forward line premiums.
Well, considering there's basically no one else to pick in the forward line, you better try and work out if he's worth it or not, because people could end up just going 5 mid prices and Harley Reid. I've seen some teams like that. Hopefully Flanders locks himself in. I don't care about the early buy. I just want to see some fall.
Yep.
Next up on our list is Liam Baker. So someone who's definitely always been around the mark, but has teased us quite a bit. Has played in the defense, has played in the forward line, hence his DPP status. But I'm pretty sure there's some reports at the moment, Joe, that he might get some midfield under the new coach. So one to watch there. If we end up not having as many DPPs as I hope, Liam Baker could force himself into some teams.
Yeah, especially getting some interesting CBA count. And if he's gotten, I think Chris from Supercoach Insider, shout out to him. He ran the calculations, and in games where he's had about 50% CBAs, he's gone about 100 odd. So that is, I think, top 6 keeper premium in the forward line status. Someone that we hope can get 50% CBAs one day is big Michito Owens. The guy is an absolute gun. He's a contested ball. He's had to play a number of different roles for the St. Kilda Saints. It's been one heck of a slog for this guy, but he continues to flourish. He continues to dominate, and he is one of the rising stars that is helping to drive the next chapter in St. Kilda's book, I suppose, the next story to get to their next flag. And I know there's a lot of pundits out there who are raving about his body and how well he's doing. Hopefully that means we can see a bit more time on the ball. If we get that, then Michito Owens at that price point becomes very interesting.
Yeah, and from all reports, he basically came into the preseason ripping, firing, and just kind of looking very, very good. It's something that I've personally been tracking. Not how he's been looking, but definitely his form over the preseason. Dominated last year, was very, very cheap, and ended up almost being a keeper for a lot of, well, at least in the first 6 or so rounds for a lot of people. So he's on my watch list. He should probably be on yours too.
It's okay. You look good too as well, Big J. It's fine. It's fine. There's no need to be. This is your boy.
Next up on our list is Taylor Adams. So coming over from Collingwood, he's 30 years old, or 31 almost now. These type of players do not come across if they're not going to play best 22. He offers some real experience for them. There are some question marks on how his body is, how he's going, that kind of thing. But if he's fit and firing, someone to track over the preseason games, that's why we're doing this video, could offer some real value. I've seen some people say pencil him in for a top 10 pick, top 8 pick in the forward line. If that's the case, if he comes out and scores a few 150s, Joe, in those preseason games, I reckon he's going to end up in some people's teams, especially at a lower price.
Not even top 8, man. People are saying top 6 as well. And it's certainly capable of doing so if he can stay fit and healthy. A very similar proposition that we can only hope and pray for this great man, Nat Fyfe, one of the absolute legends that AFL has produced, and a superstar who really should have a lot more claim to fame, and he would have if he plays for a Victorian side. But Nat Fyfe, he is going to be significantly managed this year. He's off a 2-year contract extension. So Fremantle really trying to make sure that they can get full use of him out of those 2 years. He's been playing in the midfield predominantly. He's been firing in the midfield during this pre-season. So by all reports, it looks like he's going to have a decent role. However, he only played half of the intra-club before being managed. I anticipate that he is going to play probably around 50 to 60% time on ground, which hopefully will mean that his longevity this year will allow him to play for a few more games to potentially make more money. But if he's only playing so little, then that might inhibit his scoring. So keep a close eye on that.
Mate, if he's only playing 50% game time during the preseason games, get out of my side, Nat Fyfe, because I'm not having players in my team if you're going to miss half the game and I have to yell at you. Why are you on the bench? Get on the field, blah, blah, blah. Definitely someone to watch. Mr. Sketchman, but the threat of scoring well is always there. The threat of scoring is always there for James Jordan as well. We know how well he did at Melbourne. Unfortunately, he basically got relegated to the sub almost, I'm not going to say every game, but there was quite a few games last year where that happened. He's jumped across to Sydney, moved interstate. They basically said to him, hey, we want you. You're going to play. The question mark for us is, where does he play? If he plays in that midfield, in that bulk midfield times getting CBAs, he's going to score very well because we know the scoring's there. If he ends up playing wing or half forward like he did a little bit at Melbourne, it's not going to be such a good pick at 275k. Similar to a Sheldrick, a Goulden, and an Adams. There's a lot of talk about where Sydney's makeup's going to be this year and what it's going to look like, James Jordan's on that list.
Speaking of unsure of what things look like, no one knows what the Western Bulldogs will look like. I don't even think they know what they're going to look like, to be honest, from 1 week to the next. And that is the question that we've got with James Harmes. He's moved across from the Melbourne Demons. Obviously, he ain't no spring chicken either. Very similar to a Taylor Adams. They're mature age players, and they look to change sides for greater opportunity and better roles. Harmes, in the latter part of his career at Melbourne, really was, I suppose, left on the wayside, was used as a sub in 3 of the games, and that really inhibited what sort of average that he was able to pump out. He only gave us an average of 46 points over there at the Doggies, at Melbourne. So coming to the Doggies, you can certainly expect that he's capable of pushing around the 70 to 80 mark, which is certainly at least 30 points better than what he averaged for Melbourne last year, which means that for his price point, he is undervalued. Just keep a close eye on how much time he spends on ball, or if he's spending a lot of times at half forward.
Yeah. If he can kick some goals too, then he's going to be a super handy pick, because we don't need to keep him all year, but a cheeky 100, we can ride that for a few weeks and get that cash increase.
Yep.
Last player on our list for today is Big Jack Billings. Now, from some training reports that came out this week, he was in the B team. That might just be speculation. That might just be a makeup thing. Or maybe they've come in and said, Billings, you're there. I know a lot of people have him in their starting team at the moment. It is something definitely to watch over the preseason games and heading into round 0 as well. Where does Billings play? Is he best 22? And similar to a Harmes, where his role is. Watch out, take notice, because he could be some real value or a real doorstop for a lot of people if you end up picking him and he just doesn't score well.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our deep, rapid dive of all the premiums and mid-prices who we have question marks and are looking forward to seeing in great detail during the preseason games and round 0 if they play there.
Guys, let us know down in the comments. Is there some players that you guys have picked on your watch list that we haven't put? Let us know down in the comments below.
And I don't want to see people talking about Cam Guthrie. I am not putting this guy anywhere near any list. I'm not spending any more time than I have to speak about this guy. But if you guys liked what you've seen here today, please drop us a like and a subscription. Would greatly help the growth of our channel, which we are trying to grow all the time to reach our next milestone and to improve and increase the size of our amazing community.
Guys, we've got so many videos coming out. Check out all our content. Another thing to check out is our Supercoach League as well. Got a video description down in the link below. Oh, you know what I mean. You guys can win some amazing prizes. Stay tuned for those. Stay tuned for some more information and for our community team coming out as well.
Absolutely. And make sure you hit that notification bell to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the content that we are continuously pumping out for all of you wonderful people, because here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so that you guys don't have to.